everybody. Welcome, and thanks so much for joining us. And it's great to be back in Brattleboro. I was here for a council meeting, who knows when that was? A couple months ago? April. And at that time, we really wanted to be in touch with the, town here, especially, the city. But we realized at that time we really wanted to also make sure we reached out to neighboring communities and worked with the Regional Planning Commission to make sure that we communicate what's happening on the bridge and we hear from you about how it's going. So I asked us to host this meeting, work with both our folks on the project as well as our partners and our host communities. And the point really is to make sure everyone is aware of what's going on with the bridge, how we're progressing, what to expect with what's coming. It is going to be a very significant feat of engineering that may draw a lot more attention as it builds out. And you're going to see, I think, some of the details of this engineering feat, which is very exciting. And we want you to understand it, and also for the folks with whom you interact to be aware of what's happening, because it may draw attention, and we don't want to draw attention away from the important job of driving safely. I want to say this, we know it's the biggest bridge project we've ever had in our history of our state, and we are paying close attention to how it's going. We know that it has had an impact on traveling in the corridor of the interstate itself. And I've been really working to try to ask our consultant engineers and our traffic analysts to see how we can improve the flow of traffic on the interstate during peak tourist weekends. So we'll be explaining how we've been approaching that and how we want to continue to approach that, and also to show you how data demonstrates that our activities have really reduced that traffic congestion. But we are putting some more traffic through the downtown of Brattleboro and are making accommodations to try to adjust possible increases there. So I'm assuming that we'll get into the details, so I'm not going to get into those details. I do want to mention a couple things forthcoming. You, I bet, recall that we had an attempt at closing the bridge to do a very thorough bridge inspection and paving. We learned quickly that that was not going well, and we pulled the plug. So we still have to do that activity, and I want to mention that on July 12th, there will be another inspection. We are only going to close one lane, and we are doing it on a Sunday, is it?
Sunday morning.
Sunday morning, early hours, so what we know to be the lowest times. So we are trying to do a better job. We learned the first time, we're going to get it better, and we're going to continue to hear from you, work with you to make sure we're doing it at the lowest impact. I really do want to say that as hard as this is on all of us, it's a critical investment that we're making in an asset that absolutely needs repair, and we want to do it without having an emergency closure. And I know that you are bearing with us as we make this investment for the next 100 years. It's a generational investment that we're making, and we're making it all up our interstate. And as hard as it can be for us, I am thoughtful about the generation that preceded us, that built this interstate, had a great deal of sacrifice, homes, businesses, farms. And so we know that increased traffic is an inconvenience, but relative to what was done before our time, for us, I think in that perspective it is understandably relatively minor. And we want to make sure we get it done so that we have a safe and great interstate and a beautiful bridge for our future. So that's the introduction I have. Todd Sumner, our project manager, is going to sort of go through the agenda, and we'll hear from folks who are really in the insides of our bridge. Thanks.
Thanks, Sue. As she said, I'm Todd Sumner. I'm the VTRANS project manager for this project. And I'd like to get right into the agenda. We're going to start off with a presentation from Chris Campany and Matt Mann to talk about the aesthetics committee and the regional involvement with this project. I'm going to follow that with bridge design and educational opportunities. That's going to be presented by Linda Figg, who's the president of Figg Engineering. That's going to be followed by a project update by Caleb Lynn, who's the construction manager for the contractor PCL on this project. He's going to be talking about construction progress and the schedule. And we're going to finish off, I'm going to finish off briefly with a quick little talk about traffic management in relation to 4th of July, what we're going to do for 4th of July. It's upcoming holiday season. And we'll follow that with questions and answers. So with that, I will move it on to whichever, Chris or Matt?
I was asked to give a brief history of how we got here to this design. And it all came about, VTRANS was doing their public outreach, as they do for every bridge project. Obviously this one being a little bit more special based on the size of it in 2012. And during those outreach meetings, Wyndham Regional had a little concern about the design, and it was nothing, it was a pretty basic design, but I think what we realize is that, and as everyone else does, is that there's a lot of multimodal activity happening underneath this bridge. This bridge is not only a very large structure, but it's unusual to the degree that there's a lot of activity going underneath. You have Route 30, you have obviously activity on the West River, and then the West River Trail. And so with that in mind, Wyndham Regional approached VTRANS with the idea of maybe collaborating on a new design to accentuate not only the I-91 corridor, but then also what's underneath the bridge, because that's something that a lot of people are going to be looking at for a lot of years. And so, to their credit, and I don't know how it got by, but a lot of state agencies probably would not have welcomed or even entertained that notion of redesigning something like this. But they allowed us to host a public meeting, establish an aesthetic evaluation committee, which is kind of an adjunct to our transportation committee, with representatives from both towns of Dummerston and Brattleboro, the arts committee, abutters on Route 30 close to the bridge, and committee members. And we had a public meeting, and out of that public meeting came essentially 9 to 10 criteria points that we wanted to include in the RFP that was going to be sent out yesterday, so to speak. So the time frame was pretty tight. And the criteria got in, and then the Aesthetic Evaluation Committee continued to be involved in the selection process and the scoring of the proposals. And one thing to point out is that throughout this process, the aesthetics of the bridge was, and Rich can chime in if he wants, was something that was not ever considered in a bridge project to the degree of 20% of the overall selection. Normally it's technical and cost. This is aesthetics, technical, and cost. So in the end, that played a big part in choosing this design and moving forward with it. And the Aesthetic Evaluation Committee continues to be involved. Garrett Hoffman from FIG, and Linda, we've been involved with them in working with the Aesthetic Evaluation Committee to really come up with design of the guardrails, design of the pedestrian outlook, the railing on there, the color of the bridge. So it's been a pretty extensive process and pretty incredible one from my own experience. And again, I would like to just thank VTRANS for having that foresight. This bridge is going to be around for a long time, and it was something where without them, obviously, this bridge wouldn't be happening. But without the ingenuity and foresight and creativity to actually even give it a shot, then we wouldn't be here. So, thank you.
Well, we are very excited about your new bridge. Your design build team includes Fig Bridge Group, which I am the president and CEO of. We're handling the design. And PCL with Caleb Lynn here, who's in charge of all the construction, is going to share with you some of the details of the construction. after I share details about the design. It's very exciting because this is a unique bridge, really in all the world, and it's specially made for Brattleboro in Vermont to reflect the beauty of this wonderful area. And so we've been showing some images, but I want to go through, step through some of the details about the project. So when we first started off, we kicked off in July of 2013 with the community, with the Visual Quality Advisory Team, and then a public meeting to share the details of the design that was put forth in the design build package. And our theme for the project was Vermont, a Bridge to Nature. And then here are some other pictures from the public information meeting with displays and information about the project. And really we were taken by the extraordinary beauty of this area. The bridge is set in nature. It is all about how it connects to the natural environment and reflects the beauty of this area. The recreational activities along the West River, the beauty of the West River Trail, the beautiful scenic gateway as it comes into Brattleboro, and really is part of that attraction to the beautiful qualities of the community of Brattleboro. And so this is the original bridge. You will remember it as two individual structures that were placed across the West River. It had a 440-foot main span. The new bridge is 75 feet longer across the river at a 515-foot main span. It creates a lot more openness because now we have taken two structures and combined them into one structure, which means we have dramatic singular piers on each side of the river, hosting the structure across the riverway. We accomplished this using the form of a pure arch across the water. And the shapes, textures, and colors celebrate those same colors and textures that we find in nature as the bridge connects into the landscape. So this is an overlay of the previous bridge and the new bridge. You can see how much more openness this is creating in the viewscape, really opening up all the views along the river and of nature through less structure in the superstructure and more openness in the span. So celebrating the beauty of Vermont and Brattleboro's natural landscape first involved looking at the native landscape and all the native trees and plants and the beautiful rich colors that we find through a color study and looking at all the different color palettes to ensure that this bridge would reflect that site. We also looked at some of the unique features, such as in the first state seal of Vermont is the white pine. And the white pine has 14 branches because Vermont was the 14th state. And so having this bridge be reflective of Vermont, we see some details in it of the white pine and other features in the structure. We use archetypal design principles, first starting with that theme of nature, blending shapes, creating shadows, selecting appropriate textures, choosing pleasing colors, opening up new vistas for people who are driving, not only underneath the structure, but on top of the structure, being able to see the beautiful green mountains connecting to the riverways, and using native landscaping. So another feature of the bridge is that because we have these twin columns at each location, those are not only creating openness for the structure itself, but they allow us to eliminate temporary works in the river during construction. So what you would normally see as those yellow towers are no longer needed. So there is no temporary construction in the river during construction. So it's sort of a design within the design that is allowing us to be very environmentally sensitive to the area. The bridge itself is one structure, so there are two lanes in each direction with very large shoulders. There is an open railing, which I'm going to talk about some more. The cross section is a box girder shape, and the underneath side has a domed area, which you would see here. And you get to really see this from the underside when you are standing on the observation platforms at each pier location. This is a very unique feature that will allow people to come to the riverside and look at the nature as sort of a gallery of the natural habitat, a viewing platform to enjoy space underneath in combination with these 70-foot tall piers. And so the piers and the platform, you can see here, these are 4 individual columns that are shaped in a curving element connecting to the superstructure. They start together at the base like a trunk of a tree, and then they open gracefully, adding distinction to the bridge while opening the views of the surrounding landscape. It is like a functional bridge sculpture. And then artfully, the sculpted concrete is created in a relief and earthen stains to celebrate the beautiful coloring of stone and texture in the landscape. And you can see it comes into the arching shape at the pier. And the underneath side, in the dome area, we are going to stain a blue like the sky, so that when you look up, it goes with the landscape of your view, which is the sky. And then you can stand on the observation platform in amongst these grand columns, and it will be like an outdoor cathedral. So creating that texture meant really creating some strong relief in the molding of the concrete form. This is the patterns that we're using. This is the actual footing, and by accomplishing this special texture with an inversion of different details, it creates a continuity of appearance without any unique patterns that are repeating. This is a plan view. I'm going to share each side of the river. This is along the West River Road. And in looking at this plan view, you can see the space for the viewing platform, and there's a pathway to the river along with native landscape. On the opposite side, an identical platform, and here it connects with the West River Trail. If we take a closer look at this platform, which is really the top of the footing in which the bridge is supported. So we make use of that as a 1,900 square foot viewing deck area where you can see the beautiful habitat from the area. The top surface of it is where you see the reflection of the white pine with the 14 branches. And a special railing detail was accomplished working very closely with the visual quality advisory team. Along with, we're working on the colorings and the details of the platform. This is a view if you're on the platform next to West River Road and you're looking across over to the West River Trail. You can see that with one structure we are compact in the view shed, and it offers a wonderful opening of the whole area across to the other bank. Now on this left image we're seeing 2 specific views. View 1 is looking towards the bridge from the West River Road, and that is the view that you see to the right. And view 2 is from West River Trail looking in the opposite direction, and you can see that you will see the pier next to the West River Road. And then up a little ways we have a crossing of over Drummerston Road, and this will incorporate the same type of an eco stain on the structure, blending with the natural colors of the area. This replaces a 3-span structure with one singular large span to create more openness and to create a greater opportunity for clearances. Something that is very exciting is that Roads and Bridges magazine each year comes out with their top 10 bridges in America. And last year, your bridge was selected as the #1 bridge in America. This was a tribute that was paid by Roads and Bridges magazine, and it's an incredible honor and something to be very happy and proud about. So this has been wonderful to have the opportunity to work with the local community. And this is a real tribute to VTRAN and their insight and vision for really engaging the community in this process from the very beginning. And so we developed a visual quality management plan, and we've been working with the visual quality advisory team. So these are 3 specific meetings beyond our kickoff meeting that we had to really look closer at the details and work on these together. So we had one on May 13th and then April 22nd this year, and then we're planning another one in August, September to finalize some of the other details on the landscaping and some of the coloring. So we just wanted to also take this opportunity to thank the Visual Quality Advisory Team. The names are listed here. It has been wonderful that these dedicated people from the community are spending their time and energy and opinions and thoughts and details in helping to craft this one-of-a-kind bridge. And so some pictures from some of those meetings at the job site where we're working, and then we're looking at going through a series of iterations on the colorings and stain for the concrete. And we'll be using an eco stain. This is just an example of that on a bridge that we did in Pennsylvania across the Allegheny River. And it is a stain that has no acids to it. It is a permanent kind of stain that helps to create the proper coloring in the concrete that will match with the colorings of the landscape. And this is another example where we used it at Arches National Park in Moab, Utah, showing how you can take and transform the color with this eco-friendly staining. If we take a closer look at the viewing platform, this is a recent selection by the Visual Quality Advisory Team of the railing details that will be along this platform. At the top of it will be a celebration of the various different native plants and trees, the leaves and details from those, which will have information. So as people come to the viewing platform, they can learn about the different native plants in the area. And then also the white pine is celebrated in the middle with the 14 branches, and we selected a deep green color with the visual quality team. Also, there'll be nice open railings as you're driving into Vermont to be able to really open up that view with a lot of great sights through there. Again, matching with the overall color themes. This was selected by the Visual Quality Advisory Team. And so this is really a bridge to nature, a bridge to the area, a bridge to Vermont, a bridge to Brattleboro, to the overall region. It's a celebration of all this wonderful, great quality of life. And so there's a lot of information that you can gather along the way as this is continuing to be built. There's a website that features the latest news, renderings, and construction information, which is updated regularly. And on the second Saturday of every month, all the way through project completion, you can meet at 8 a.m. at the West River Trailhead for a special tour of the construction. And you can see on the left side a listing of the dates of these tours have been going on. So we welcome everyone in the community to come out and really see the details of this bridge going up. And there's the Vermont 511 website and Twitter feed which provides up-to-date traffic information and reports from the Traffic Operations Center. And also the Friends of the West River Trail, there's a link to the project, from the project to the West River Trail. And we're very excited about an educational program that will be coming about this fall with the new school year for the middle and elementary schools in the region. This is what we call the Bridge Basics Program Kit. It's an educational kit that we worked on with the National Building Museum in Washington, D.C. And it helps the teachers use this as part of a STEM program to encourage math and science and details. And this one is specifically customized to include your Brattleboro Bridge. And we have models that are inside. This is actually a model that's been put together already. You will see in front here the pieces of the model, and it allows for the children to put the models together and learn about how the bridge is put together. So we're very excited about that. Representatives of FIG and PCL will visit the local schools this fall, talk about your bridge, go through the educational program with the teachers, and really get the children engaged in the elementary and middle schools, all about this wonderful new infrastructure in your area. So we're very excited to be providing this bridge for you in design, and very excited to be working with the local community on it. And it is just a real tribute to this community and all the beauty that is here.
Thank you so much, Linda.
Sure.
I always get goosebumps when I see the presentation. It's the second or third time now, and I always learn something new, and it's an exciting project that we're delivering. From my perspective, I'm a 30-year veteran of VTRANS, and believe it or not, 20 years ago I used to crawl under the existing bridges quite often with the servo lift and inspect it, and used to spend a lot of nights here at the Colonial Inn and enjoy the neighborhood. So about 5 years ago, I took a team out here, and knowing the history of some of and the age of this corridor, we looked under the bridges, some over your house, and Martha, and then this one here, and we said, hey, we got to do something. So really a little bit of background also of how we got to this point, and maybe the reason why we're getting some of these kudos directed to VTRANS is we did have a sense of urgency, and we have been striving to be more and more innovative. And one of the ways of doing that is we used to use the traditional design, bid, build process, which, you know, we would get in the office, we'd do the design knowing what we needed, and then we'd do the permitting, and then we'd bid it out, and then we'd bring on a contractor like Caleb, and low bid would win, and they would build the project. And there was really no dialogue between the designers and the builders when it came to a complex project. And not only that, it takes time to get through that entire process. And we had just had legislation passed with the help of the legislature on utilizing design build, and this was one of our third projects. The first one was actually down at south of exit 2, and then there was this one. And what that enables us to do is compress the time from design all the way to construction and hit the ground sooner. So we're going to realize a bridge replaced much sooner than we had anticipated. We also recognize that permitting component, sometimes, you know, when you're looking at a site like this, a bridge to nature, for example, we knew that there was local sentiment and value regarding this structure. And we invested up front in this support that was provided by the RPC, recognizing that if we would utilize a process where we did a design and then permit, you know, if it would have triggered Act 250 or any other type of public input, which is necessary to provide a project, it's very cumbersome. And not only that, it's hard to anticipate what the transportation department will be directed to include in the project. So it's time and money not only to permit it, but it could be potentially time and money down the road, because we didn't really know what type of features would be directed for us to be including in the bridge. So this process of including that the RPC helped us get through with the aesthetics committee certainly helped get us through that. We all knew up front that the parameters and the criteria, I think you said 9, was it, Matt? And it helped compress the time and also control some of that activity. And really, we know that also, Linda, you didn't just bring to the table and PCL the aesthetics component. We, the agency of transportation, had 80%, which we were focused on the construction, the type of maintenance we're going to envision over time, the type of flow that we would see during construction, believe it or not, and all those things factored into weighing which proposal would come in first. So thank you all for the presentation, and I look forward to what Caleb's going to say on what we have to go from there.
Again, my name's Caleb. I'm the project manager for PCL on the job with a general contractor. I think I know the majority of the people in the room. June marks our 2-year anniversary having mobilized to the area, which would be personally my 2-year anniversary for living here locally with Nick and a lot of the team here. And this is PCL's first opportunity to work with VTRANS in the community, and I'd like to say that we've had a blast so far. The people in the community have been outstanding, working with the local agencies and through some of the problems that we've had and some of the good times that we've had. It's been great, and we really appreciate everybody's coordination efforts and patience with us and involvement in the project. So I just want to start off by saying thanks before we get into the details. We really appreciate everyone's efforts there as we work through it. Just getting into some of the details of the construction. To talk to what Rich said about the design-build process, we worked with FIG through the design-build proposal, and we submitted a proposal to the state, which we would call at a 30% design stage in roughly January, February of 2013. We were then under contract by May 2013 and hit the ground running by September, October 2013. So to speak to the expedited process of a design-build construction, you're looking at going from a 30% design where you don't have permits in place to actually on-the-ground building within a 7 to 8 month time frame, which is a very compressed time. And again, it's great for VTRANS to recognize that process and that there's that you can really expedite that build design process. So just to speak to some of that. So let's talk about some of the things that a lot of us already know is done. We've demolished the northbound structure, as we're all fully aware, but that was the first thing that we got going on out here, and we had to do that in order to provide us the alignment, the space we need for the new alignment of the structure. And how we did that, we took the concrete deck off first. We put a crane out there. It's been a while now, but I know a lot of people were interested to see a 110-ton crane sitting up on top of that existing bridge, especially when we separated it at the center and still had the crane sitting on top of it. So I can assure everybody that's very safe engineered. We were all up there quite a bit as we worked through that. That was through the winter of 2013-14, our first winter here, which looks just as bad as the last one that we had here.
What are you talking about? That's good.
That's right. Construction-wise. All right. So concurrently with demolition, we did build the foundations of the structure. So you can see here highlighted in blue, these are the footings and the drilled shafts. These are the main structural supports of the main structure. We constructed these through that winter of 2013-14 into the spring. So the bridge is founded on what we call a drilled shaft. It's 66-inch diameter. There's 8 on each side of the river. They're drilled all the way down into bedrock. And so you drill 16 to 20 feet, depending on where you're at, into the rock. And then you have a unsupported, overburdened condition in the soil. And once those are constructed, you put the footing on top, which is here. So just show you some pictures of that drilled shaft construction, which again is now complete. So we have our temporary casing that we put in the ground. We go in with a drill rig, drill that hard rock out, which is a tremendous undertaking. It's very, very high strength rock. Then we install a rebar cage into the center of that casing, which you see here being set by the crane. Once that rebar cage gets set in there, you pump concrete into the hole. And I'm oversimplifying it, but when it's all said and done, you have these drilled shafts sticking up out of the ground. They're embedded into rock, and those provide the foundation for the structure. So again, the footing that sit on top, this is the existing structure here, so we are building behind it. Again, that's a component that allowed us to expedite construction with the design. So you see the drill shaft rebar sticking up out of the ground, and we went in and we formed the footing around it. So these are just some of the sidewalls. You see that form liner? That form liner is what creates that rock-looking face that Linda was talking about previously. There we go. Heavily congested rebar. This footing had number 18 rebar in it, which is the largest size rebar that they fabricate. So heavily reinforced, give it that solid foundation. There's Gil Newberry, VTRANS inspector, hanging out inside the forms there. This is on pour day. This is a very large concrete pour. They consider it mass concrete. The concrete pour took us around 10 to 11 hours, starting in the morning, finish at night. A lot of flagging over on Route 30. Again, some of the traffic restrictions that we talk about when we communicate that this is what's going on during those flagging operations when we have short traffic interruptions. So a lot of work goes in place to get in those foundations, but they're the most important parts. Without a solid foundation, you're not going very much further. So this was completed in the spring of 2014. And then there's your finished product with the footing there. This is on the Route 30 side. You can see that rock facade. It looks white. Most of the concrete that you see for our substructure looks white right now, and we've been asked a lot about that on our trail talks. The reason that it's white is because we put a surface on the inside of our forms that help us strip those forms, and it's a combination of soap and talc, like the weightlifters use, the white powder. You mix that up in a bucket, you coat it on the side of the forms, and that allows you to strip it off. It's environmentally friendly, and it helps those forms get stripped easily and moved to the other side. So when we're done and before we stain, we go and we wash that substance off, and that gives us a nice clean surface for our subcontractor to come in and put the stain on there and turn it what color it's supposed to be. So don't worry, it's not a white structure. So the columns, these are also complete at this point, but we'll show some pictures of the construction of the columns that took place over the course of the last year. So again, I'm going to show some pictures here, but a heavily reinforced substructure. That picture on the right there is the rebar coming up out of the footing, and that's the first lift of the columns. You see the density there of the rebar. Again, very important to make those columns stiff for construction. Some progress photos there. We used an FCO form system. Some of the forms are rented, some of them are purchased custom for this project because of the curvature of the job. So FCO supplies those forms for us. We work hand in hand with their engineering group to make sure that we've got the proper strength for that form system. So there's some finished photos of the curvature of the columns. You can see there's only one flat face. Very, very, very challenging construction. It's critical that the geometry is where it's supposed to be from an alignment standpoint. Tolerances are very tight, and again, that substructure is your platform for your bridge, and you got to make sure that everything's where it's supposed to be. So we built that throughout the summer of 2014 and wrapped up here just this past winter on the trail side. So there's some pictures of the trail side. We call that Pier 2 of the completed structure. So the pier table, the pier table is the component that we've been building over on the Route 30 side since last fall. That's the one that most people are familiar with. You saw the yellow false work towers that got put in place. This is all temporary works. When Linda showed that image of temporary supports that potentially would have had to be in the river, this is the type of system she's talking about. We avoided that with the segmental bridge that we selected, so we only had to put that in there around the causeways. And we'll talk about our form traveler here in a minute that allows us to eliminate this from having to be installed into the river or in other locations on the job. So step one, we installed this false work system that supports the formwork for that pier table. It's a very, very large structure. On the trail talks, Garrett talks to it being the size of our office building over there behind the marina in relationship to what's out there. When you're underneath it or you're up on top of it, it's just a very, very, very large structure. This is really the anchor for our segmental construction. I'll go through that process, but again, very, very critical component of the job. A lot of geometry involved, and alignment's critical, and you got to make sure that that we get it within the tolerances so that moving forward with the segmental construction, everything ends up where it's supposed to be. So this was a very good time on the job because the winter was ending, 2015. Again, it was an awesome winter for Vermonters, but very challenging on the job site. So this is the top deck. You can see stainless steel rebar, another component that VTRANS incorporated in the job to help with the service life of the structure that adds to the 100-year design life. That way, a long time down the road, if you do get some issues with water intrusion, it's hitting stainless steel rebar and helps prevent corrosion and different types of things. So you can see just heavily reinforced, and then there's some duct here. It's that strand go in for our post-tensioning because of it being a segmental bridge. And then this is the day of the pour of that deck. You can see we use a screed. It's a mechanical screed that you run on rails here. You pour the concrete and you bring that across, and that gives it that nice, flat, smooth surface. It was a gorgeous day for that pour. We were all very happy. It went very, very well for us. So that's the structure as it stands today. The next critical part after we got the deck poured was to take this entire false work and formwork system and get it on the other side of the river as fast as possible, because that's what we call the critical path of the job. That's what drives our schedule. So we designed a system, it's called a strand jack system, that allowed us to lower the whole system at once, and we took the bottom towers out first. So we lifted up a little bit, took the bottom towers out, and then dropped it down piece by piece. And that allowed us to start putting these towers up on the other side of the river before we had all the formwork in different parts removed. So again, just helping expedite construction, getting things moving forward as quickly as possible. And then it took us about a week and a half to get all that removed. And that's basically the finished product of the pier table. So really cool, significant structure, and that's about to be covered up by a form traveler that we just started erecting last week. So this is over on the trail side now. You'll see the exact same construction you saw on the Route 30 side happening over on the trail. People coming to the trail talks will have a really good view of that work activity, and we'll have a lot of good stuff to talk about when we're out there. That activity will take place for the rest of the summer. We'll be building that second pier table and be wrapped up by the fall. So segmental construction. This is something that we want to focus on a little bit during this meeting from a what to expect standpoint. The segments are built with what we call a form traveler. That form traveler is supported by the structure itself. So this is that component where we say we don't need supports underneath. One of the, for someone, a passerby who's just going by, might be very surprised when they come on Route 30 and they see a bridge hanging above with no supports, right? If you don't know the engineering behind it, that could be concerning. So the way segmental construction works is we build one segment at a time with this form traveler system, and then we stress it together with strand, and it gives it a very rigid construction, and there's no concerns whatsoever of the structure falling or that there's any safety concerns whatsoever. It's designed that way. It's been done many times. Segmental bridge construction has been around for a long time, and it's a very successful type of structure. So those segments are built in a balanced cantilever fashion. As we get out, we go to the center of the river, and at the same time we're going back towards Abutment 1 over Route 30. And when we're done with that Pier 1 side, we take our form travelers and we jump them to the other side of the river on the trail side, and we do the same balanced cantilever construction, cast in place segmental construction. And then when it's all done, we have what we call a closure pour, and that locks the bridge together in the center and at the abutments. So what's important there is that we're, from an alignment standpoint, we're surveying those segments in, making sure everything's going to the same point, so that when we get to the middle, that they meet and we're able to make that closure pour. We like to joke about that on the trail talks too with the community. So I assure everyone it will meet in the middle. So again, just to talk a little bit about the form traveler, this is a rendering. I don't know why our engineers decided to make it look like Antarctica for the renderings, but I think it must have been done in the middle of the winter. But so this is what that form traveler looks like from an engineering standpoint. This would be the pier table, the component that's complete. And then there's just steel trusses, PT bars, platforms. It's basically just a hanging formwork system that's supported by the structure that's already in place, and it's on rails. And these rails run along the top of the bridge. And each time you cast a segment, you launch out on those rails, and then you anchor it down to the structure behind you. So it's a self-supporting traveling system. This is a picture from just last week of the Form Traveler going up. It's green and yellow, and yes, those are PCL colors, and we did that on purpose, if anyone's wondering. But it's also green for Vermont, so it made sense. But there's a good picture of when we say there's a cantilever. These pieces that are cantilevered out over the structure. I think at this point, this is right along the edge of Route 30, and that'll keep extending out towards the abutment, and you'll see that cantilever the whole time, but supported from above. And then this is a picture from the top of the deck. That's the Form Traveler system. There's these hydraulic rails we were talking about. You see them anchored down to that pier table. And so each time we pour a segment, we pour 16 feet at a time. Once that's stressed back, it's tied together with steel strand. Then we launch that traveler ahead, retie it down to this structure that we've just poured, and then keep jumping forward in a balanced cantilever fashion. So this is just an example. This is down in Connecticut, our Q Bridge project. And you can see here, this is their balanced cantilever. So again, it's cantilevered out. You have no supports underneath. It's built with a Form Traveler. Here they have a heating system in place because this is in the winter. But again, just no supports underneath. For us, you may have Route 30 right here driving right into this thing, supported by the bridge. So Upper Dummerston, we have Bridge 8 that's under construction. We've already demolished the old structure. We did that beginning of last summer. And we, to date, have installed the foundation piling for that. And just here in the last 2 to 3 weeks, started building the MSC wall. So for those wondering what that was going to look like as you come across Upper Dummerston, these panels, which will have that same stain that we talked about for the bridge, will go all the way up. These piles aren't that high, they need to get cut off, but that'll be your view as you come underneath. So those MSC walls should be built here within a month, and we're going to start working on Bridge 8, and the plan is to try to have Bridge 8 complete by the end of the year, this year. So that's it for the construction update. And I'm going to kick it over to Todd for traffic management, unless anybody wants to ask me any questions. Good? All right.
I want to emphasize that the big thing I wanted us all to be learning about is this construction that's going to leave people feeling that they're going under a bridge that's hanging out there. And, you know, we kind of want that message out that this is safe, this is what you're going to be seeing, and keep your eyes on the road.
Yes.
And it's going to be different and unusual and perhaps disconcerting, but we have no reason to be feeling that way.
None whatsoever.
I'll reiterate, keep your eyes on the road.
We're concerned about that. That's one of the fundamental reasons we wanted this level of education.
Yeah.
As many of you may remember from this past winter, I-91 southbound had a tendency to back up on Sunday afternoon during the ski season. That was caused by, if you remember correctly, if you're heading southbound, the interstate's narrowing down to one lane at that point, just before exit 3. And you had a lot of vehicle friction between that increased traffic heading southbound at that time and vehicles merging onto I-91 from exit 3. That was kind of what was causing it. Now, VTRANS, to help mitigate this, took action to close exit 3 on-ramps, detouring traffic north on US 5 to exit 4, and traffic south through downtown Brattleboro to exit 2. Ended up being a success, because the queues were not happening on I-91 South anymore. And as a result of that success, we hired a traffic consultant to take all the existing data and analyze all the traffic data that we had, and make a determination of whether or not that successful model that we had then could be applied to more of a weekend. We also wanted them to look at ways that we could improve that model. The analysis came back, and yes, it was a reasonable and feasible option to do for Memorial Weekend. And we did implement, we only had time to implement 2 of them at the time, but we did implement a couple of those recommendations. And one of those recommendations was putting portable message board signs on Route 9 west of Exit 2. That would inform drivers that I-91 was going to have some delays, and encourage those drivers to use US 5 north as an alternate route. The other recommendation that we used was the traffic that was getting detoured from Exit 2 Exit 3 down to Exit 2 was actually going to detour down to Exit 1. And what that did was alleviate a lot of the backup that we were seeing at the intersection of US 5 and US 9 right there in downtown. So with that in mind, we implemented that model for Memorial Weekend, and it was a success. We got some feedback from people who were along the detour route, posted there to watch it, and the police chief, and we got positive feedback for that. So that was good. The general consensus was that the traffic was heavy, but it was manageable. Now with that, we'd like to move forward with that success and apply it to the 4th of July weekend. Now, we had our traffic people look at it, and again, the decision was yes, it would help alleviate and improve traffic flow on I-91, but however, they did bring to the point that the data does show that the traffic volumes on July 4th weekend and the duration of those traffic volumes are higher for July 4th than Memorial Weekend. So there may be some concern there when we do this. To help mitigate that, we're going to go out with a broader outreach to get to drivers and inform them of these delays in Brattleboro and to seek alternate routes before they get to Brattleboro. Now, 2 of the ways that we're going to look at that was we're going to partner with travel and tourism, and they're going to work with them to reach out to drivers outside of the state of Vermont. And we're also going to work with and coordinate with the New Hampshire DOT to put up portable message signs in New Hampshire. We'd like to put them in New Hampshire, far enough into New Hampshire that it informs drivers of the delays in Brattleboro and encourages them to take an alternative route before they're committed on US 9 West into Brattleboro. Now, the benefit of that is a lot of the traffic that gets detoured from Exit 3 down to Exit 1 when it's closed is coming from New Hampshire. So if we can get a lot of those cars to peel off ahead of time in New Hampshire, that's going to alleviate, some of that extra, hopefully alleviate some of that extra traffic that we're going to see on the 4th of July. There were some other implementations that we wanted to put in place for the 4th of July. One was we're going to change the timing, the signal timing at the light in front of Hannaford's. The benefit with that was we're going to try to create a metering device. That way it would create gaps in the southbound flow going down US 5 into Brattleboro. It would create gaps so vehicles at intersections and side roads could clear through with those gaps. Now, if that traffic does and it may back up all the way up to the interstate from Hannaford's Light, and if that does happen, we can always switch them to a flashing yellow. One of the other things that we plan on doing is all the other signals between Exit 3 and Exit 1, set them to a flashing yellow as well. And we also plan to have uniformed traffic officers at important and critical intersections in that route as well to help facilitate traffic flow and pedestrian activity in downtown. So it kind of sums it up. If you want to sum it up even briefer, we plan on doing the same thing we did for Memorial Weekend for 4th of July. The goal is we're going to have some more improvements to it, do a broader public outreach. We do know that the traffic volumes are going to be a little bit higher. There may be some congestion that we hadn't seen on Memorial Weekend, but we're doing the best we can to mitigate those, to make sure that this holiday season is going to be much more successful and moving that traffic than we were last year.
I want to re-emphasize one other point. When Todd mentions the word success, the data demonstrated, it actually looked at the amount.
I'm sorry, I completely.
That's okay.
Right here.
Oh, you have something.
Yes,
Yeah.
right there. I meant to do that. For Memorial Weekend, when we put that portable message board down on Route 9 to the west of exit 2, it improved slightly. If you look right there, in 2014, the average speed northbound at that time was 16 to 20 miles an hour, and we improved it to 25 to 41 miles per hour.
Which meant that we didn't have when it's going 10 miles an hour, it's clogging. When it's going 20 to 40, it's slower, but it's moving.
Right.
So we see a significant improvement. That's what he meant by the term success in terms of I-91.
And also when we close exit 3, this is the big change. When we close exit 3, last year, when it was down to one lane in that area, right where we're merging with the southbound stuff, speeds averaged 12 miles per hour. On Memorial Day weekend, we got 55 to 62 miles per hour, that range. So there's a great improvement in that, by just doing that. Just putting the portable message board signs on Route 9 was just something that we're going to do to help mitigate that northbound traffic and that friction at exit 2 when those cars had a north merge, Thursday and Friday. The exit 3 closure is going to would happen on Sunday afternoon. Again, the difference between this time and Memorial Weekend, I think Memorial Weekend we went from 11 we went to 11 to 6:30. Whereas just because, like I said earlier, that the higher traffic volumes has a longer duration for 4th of July, so we're going to have to run that closure, I think, from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. at night in order to alleviate that longer duration.
And then there's the exit 3 is closed the following Sunday as well. 12th, you said originally, right? Sunday 12th is the bridge inspection.
Do the pier table being on the north lane, I don't think the bridge inspectors can get to where they need to if we close that one, so I believe it'll be south. Right now we're having VHB continue to look at some of the data to verify the numbers, but I don't think it's a big deal which lane we close, but tentatively I would say that we are going to close the southbound lane and the northbound open.
Which is a little bit different than in the Sunday afternoon closure of just the on-ramps that we were talking about for the 4th of July. Or July 5th, I should say.
Other questions or comments?
You had said, I think, early morning hours for those closures, for the inspection closures. What is?
My understanding is what I've heard is it's 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Sunday morning. Because that is, we want to avoid what happened last time. There's just way too much traffic to be dumping all in downtown Brattleboro. Hopefully,
I think
it will be much less so.
I think it's critical to point, as Eric said, our engineering firm is looking in the analysis, but it's critical that we do solicit input for influences that we might not be capturing for a Sunday morning. So I know Eric plans on reaching out in that regard before.
That's kind of the point of this, yeah.
I'll just note that since you were here last time, Secretary, there's been way better communication, I think. Town manager certainly thinks there's been better communication. As long as PCL is communicating effectively with the town manager and other department heads, hopefully we can avoid a repeat of the gridlock we had when both lanes were closed midday.
Right, we have someone on the radio trying to announce all of this. We're trying to use every media outlet we can. And by the way, the New Hampshire DOT we haven't done before now, so that's actually something we're knowing because on July 4th, a big significant part of the traffic is coming from New Hampshire. So we're in communication with them to put their variable message signs out. So hopefully we can reduce some of that flow, which really will hopefully alleviate some of the impacts. Thank you all for coming, and I know it's an endurance, but we're making progress, and I know it will be something we will be proud of in the long run, and I'll be around for any questions if you want to ask.